Happy game day, everybody, and welcome into GameQuest. It is a Volquest.com game day podcast. I am Eric Cain alongside Grant Ramey. And GameQuest is presented by our great friends over at Premier Garage of Knoxville. That's East Tennessee's #1 provider of custom garage flooring, cabinetry, storage solutions. Be the best Tennessee fan this football season by ordering the Smokey Grey hybrid polymer floor today at premiergaragenoknoxville.com/Vols. One more time, that is premiergaragenoknoxville.com/Vols. It is number 6 Tennessee on the road at number 15 Oklahoma. Both teams are 3-0. Both teams are starting Southeastern Conference play. One team, that being Oklahoma, starting Southeastern Conference play for the very first time ever. There's one former player, one former coach that's going to be on an opposite sideline. There's a pair of former 5-star quarterbacks going to battle. Grant Ramey, the storylines are endless, man. We've talked about it all offseason. We've talked about it all week. This is a big one. Any way you look at it, this is a big one for Tennessee and Oklahoma.
You think the SEC might have had some storylines in mind back in December when they
maybe
put the schedule out? And I, for one, appreciate the SEC. Thank you. It's a huge week. It's been a really fun week. It just feels so different because this time of year usually is Florida either coming here or Tennessee's going there. It just feels different. This is the new look SEC. Obviously, schedules are different. Feels like Tennessee they've played 2 home games, but it feels like they haven't been home the first 6 weeks of the schedule because they go to Oklahoma and bye week and then go back to Arkansas. So it's got a different feel to it. But, man, the storylines, Josh Heupel going home, all that stuff, going back to Oklahoma, visiting sideline, what Tennessee's looks like through 3 games, what Oklahoma's looked like through 3 games. Like, we're going to figure a lot of stuff out Saturday night at Oklahoma Memorial Stadium based on how that thing plays out one way or the other.
Yeah, most importantly, the biggest thing here is you want to get off to a good start in conference play, but just like the NC State game, entering that game, like these 2 teams have college football playoff aspirations.
Right.
They have college football playoff expectations. You know, we talked about the the ESPN Power Index has given Tennessee a blankety-blank chance to, you know, go to the college football playoff, and that just continues to grow and grow each and every week. And if you win this game, if you're Tennessee, we believe there are tougher games on the schedule, you know, Georgia, Alabama for sure. But if you win this game, man, you are sitting in the freaking driver's seat. I mean, you are really helping yourself out. If you lose, doesn't mean you're out of it, okay? But you are really, really helping yourself out. Not Oklahoma as well in the same respect. You know, Tennessee is viewed by many right now, and I've heard it several times this week, is the best football team in the country right now. And so you knock down Tennessee, you improve that resume, you get a huge win to begin SEC play. You know, for championship aspirations this year, this is a massive game for both.
Yeah, and the people that said and the people that thought you bring in a 12-team playoff and it's going to take away from the regular season and all this stuff and it's going to make games meaningless, I couldn't disagree more. I mean, I think these games are so much fun. Just like the last 5-6 weeks of the college basketball season is so interesting because it leads into Selection Sunday, and you're trying to figure out which teams are in, which teams are out, where they're going to be seated, where they're going to be sent, who they're going to play, all that stuff. That's the fun of it, the leading up to the postseason and then the postseason. This 12 teams just expands so many more teams that have a shot. I mean, it's not about, you know, teams 5 to 9. It's about 10, 11, 12, and then the next 4 out. It's about all those bubble teams that are trying to get in. And those are 2 teams, Tennessee and Oklahoma, that ESPN had as – now, first of all, Tennessee was in last week per ESPN, one of them at least, one of the predictions. And then they're out this week after beating Kent State 71-0. So I'm not really sure what happened there. But it's so much fun because you're tracking that stuff week to week and you're trying to figure out, like, who's going to be in, who's going to be out, and what do you have to do to kind of stay on that bubble or stay in the field, whatever it is, depending on which schools you're talking about. But, I mean, NC State's not a great team. Chattanooga, probably a little bit better than I thought they were based on what they did at Georgia State a couple of weeks ago. Kent State, worst football team I've ever seen. But, and I read this on ESPN as well, I think Bill Connolly wrote it, it's not who you play, it's how you play. And Tennessee's handled its business A+++, whatever, all 3 games. I mean, they couldn't have beat Kent State more thoroughly than they did. They couldn't have beat NC State more thoroughly than they did. Same with Chattanooga. Like, they've passed every test in front of them. Oklahoma, on the other hand, they killed Temple week 1. They struggled with Houston week 2, who was coming off a 27-7 loss at UNLV. And then they kind of struggled to put Tulane away. They got up in that game, and then Tulane rallied and made it a game in the second half. So it's going to be really interesting to see which team kind of, I don't know, answers, whatever, continues, I guess, down that track if you're Tennessee, or does Oklahoma throw some punches and find some stuff?
Yeah, no doubt. Storyline's endless and big-time implications, and we're going to have it all for you over at Volquest.com. Ollie Lane, former Tennessee offensive lineman, is going to join the show in about 10, 15 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on Oklahoma. We'll give our predictions towards the end of the show. But real quick, just a brief scout here in the first couple of minutes of the show, Grant. Jackson Arnold, offensively, boy, it has not looked good. And yes, there's injury situations there. Nick Anderson should be getting back. He's a wide receiver that hadn't played this year. He had 10 touchdowns a year ago. That should help. Another starting wide receiver's out, and he's out for the year. There's been no run game. Absolutely. I mean, Jackson Arnold's their leading rusher. There's been no run game, no run identity whatsoever. Offensive line-wise, we know about replacing 5 starters from a season ago, but even in that respect, you lost your left guard for the year. Your center has a high ankle sprain. We'll see if he plays, depending on the injury report coming up 90 minutes before the game and, all that. Your right tackle's doubtful, at least at this time of the recording. There's been a lot of issues on that side of the football, so I'm not trying to make excuses, but I'm just trying to, call what it is. But still, man, 325 yards of total offense on average, 166 through the air, 159 on the ground, 2 turnovers, 31% on third down. I thought Arnold came into his own a little bit last week against Tulane, ran the ball a little bit better. He's got, I think, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks, 2 rushing touchdowns, 62% completion. When I say there's no run identity, there's literally no run identity. Javonte Barnes averaging 4 yards a carry. Their best running back has only ran it 15 times in 3 games as a freshman, Taylor Tatum. He's averaging 6 yards a carry. I'd give it to him more, but there's not a lot going on in the ground game. And then wide receiver-wise or weapon-wise offensively, the Purdue transfer and Deion Burks has been pretty solid to begin the year. Bauer Sharp, Tennessee looked at him in the transfer portal. They've incorporated their tight ends a little bit, but 9 sacks allowed, 17 TFLs, and Grant, boy, just pin your ears back and go to work, man. If you're that defensive line, they should feast in this game.
They should, and as cliche as it is, and you've heard it a million times, it's a line of scrimmage league. It's a line of scrimmage game Saturday in Norman. Tennessee's defensive front got to get off the field on third down. Don't let Jackson Arnold kind of Graham Murphy to death where they extend plays and you just can't get them off the field. You saw that against North Carolina State early on. That first drive, NC State converted so many thirds, and then Tennessee adjusted and didn't allow one, I don't think, after that. I think they went 0 for 12 or something crazy like that. Tennessee's been really good on third down. I'm not saying spy the kid or anything like that, but just don't let him beat you with his legs. Like, he's going to get his a little bit, but don't let him make back-breaking plays, big plays, extend drives, stuff like that with his legs. And, yeah, I think this defensive front, I mean, what we saw against NC State, there's no reason not to believe, or what we've seen, I guess, all 3 games, that they're not going to be consistent, that they're not going to be good, they're not going to get pressure on the guy. Tennessee's defensive backfield obviously is young, kind of untested still to this point, but I think that goes hand in hand with how good the defensive front has been. Tennessee's going to run the ball, I think, because Dylan Sampson's that good and because they're that committed to it. And that's going to be huge. I'm not saying don't put it all on the shoulders of Nico and he can't win this game for you, but if you can run the football, that's going to be a huge difference maker in this game. So I think they have to control both lines of scrimmage because you got to protect your secondary by getting a consistent pass rush, and then you got to take a little bit of pressure off your quarterback by having a consistent run game.
Real quick look at the Oklahoma defense. That is typically pretty stout. We know about Brent Venables. He's a defensive coach. 264 yards of total defense through 3 games on average, 187 through the air, 77 on the ground. That's a good number. They've caused 10 turnovers. That is noteworthy. Even last year, not a very good pass defense statistically last year. However, Oklahoma led the Big 12 in interceptions. The safety Bowman had 6 picks a season ago. That was 3rd nationally. Very aggressive defense, and it seems that that's kind of carried over this year. Again, Houston, Tulane, Temple. It's not murderer's row. I recognize that. Good against the run. That's a key matchup. I still like Tennessee in that one. They've got a great linebacker in Danny Stutzman. Really, really good linebacker. Had over 100 tackles a season ago. He's got 33 tackles in 3 games, averaging over 10 a game. The next closest is a cornerback, or actually a safety, Robert Spears Jennings. He has 17 tackles. So, there's quite a gap right there. I do think that Venables will try to confuse Nico, will try to I think they'll try to, blitz from different levels, try to confuse some things with the offensive line. And also, Ollie's going to speak on this here in a moment, or maybe it was Austin Price in the Mailbag podcast. We've done so many podcasts today. It's a little overwhelming. I do think that they're going to try to stop that run and try to have that identity early in the game, because you're not going to be able to stop both, altogether. So defense is solid, but I do think that Tennessee's offense, if it plays the way that Tennessee's offense can play, it should be able to score some points. That should be no issue, right?
Yeah, and to me, it's establishing early and getting off to a fast start. And I feel like I say that every single week on this podcast, but it's so important for this Tennessee offense because we've seen so many fast starts from this group, from Josh Heupel's offenses over the years, and how important those are to how a game plays out, and especially on the road, especially at Oklahoma, especially a game that's got so much drama around it and storylines and all this stuff. Like, if you can go there and you can put 14-21 on the board in the first quarter, that's going to suck the wind out of the place. And we've seen that happen at Tennessee over the years, where it's a huge game and another team comes in and gets off to a fast start, and it takes the air out of the building, and you can't blame the fans for having the air taken out of the building, because that's just the way the game's playing out. So I think you got to establish that early. Got to be committed to the run early. Nico's a young guy. He's going to make his mistakes. We saw that against NC State. He rebounded really, really good from those mistakes. But just be committed to that Dylan Samson run game, and however you got to do it just to get the ball out in space to kind of neutralize Oklahoma if they are super aggressive, if they are trying to mix stuff up and make it as confusing as possible, because we've seen Tennessee be really, really good, really, really efficient, explosive, all that stuff in the run game. Now here comes the biggest test for that run game in this Oklahoma defense. So if you can establish that early, I think that changes the way the game plays out.
VFL Ollie Lane is going to join us here on GameQuest in a matter of moments. But first, I do want to tell you about our friends over at Premier Garage of Knoxville. Garage guys or gals, listen up. This is for you right now. During college football season, you probably use your garage as kind of like a man cave, right? Watching football throughout the fall, maybe even trying to get a quick escape from the family. If you're like me, I like to start every Saturday in there watching college football game day, maybe that 12:45 game on the SEC network. It's your place. It's your sanctuary of sorts, right? So here's a question for you. What better compliment to this garage than Premier Garage of Knoxville's custom Smokey Grey hybrid polymer floor? Premier Garage of Knoxville is East Tennessee's leading provider of custom garage flooring, cabinetry, and storage solutions. They only use company employees as opposed to subcontractors to ensure that you receive consistent craftsmanship and personalized attention. 15-plus years of business, locally owned, operated, thousands of satisfied customers. You can schedule a free in-home consultation by visiting this website that you're seeing right now at premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. You look at this website, okay? First, you can put all your information in here where you can schedule a free in-home consultation. You can check out everything else they have going on over here at Premier Garage. Phone number's up here on the top right. You can see this beautiful, beautiful smoky gray hybrid polymer floor. See that power tee right there as well. See it speckled right there? Tennessee wore gray on opening day. Why not have gray in your garage today? Be the best Tennessee fan you can be with Premier Garage of Knoxville. Again, that's premiergarageofknoxville.com/Vols to go ahead and get set up today. premiergarageofknoxville.com/Vols. Big thank you for being the presenting sponsor of GameQuest. And as always, do want to give you a word about our friends over at PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is where you can have fun this football season and put some coin in your pocket. You can win 100 times your money this football season. All you have to do is just select 2 or more players, pick more than or less than the projected stat value, and place your entry. And what they're doing over at PrizePicks.com right now as well, to go ahead and get started, you can play $5 and get $50 instantly if you put in the promo code VQ. You play $5, you get $50 instantly by just putting that promo code VQ. You got your grid, 2 to 6 players, stat projections, right? More than or less than. We always like to have so much fun. So you go on there today and you can check out and see what Nico's projected, more than, less than, Dylan Samson, more than, less than, Keenan Peely tackles, more than, less than, all that and more. You can have other college football games, have NFL, you can have other sports. Create your grid, and you can win 100 times, your money back this football season. So go to PrizePicks.com, put in that promo code VQ to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. That's promo code VQ over at PrizePicks.com. Ollie Lane, former Tennessee offensive lineman, joining us here on GameQuest. Ollie, appreciate you taking the time, man. So far, so good for Tennessee football. From your observations, kind of in a a different lens this year, obviously. What have you liked about Tennessee so far this year?
I like that they're bringing back that spark to that offense. They're really they're hitting on all cylinders right now, and it's exciting and it's fun to watch. It's nice being on this side of it. I get to just enjoy it and get the excitement out of it. I'm not worried about the stress and putting the show on for people. I just get to watch the show now, and so I mean that's definitely very nice. I would say I'm excited. I've been waiting for this week for it feels like forever now. I'm waiting for us to get that real first, this is our first big game. Obviously looking back, going into the NC State week, we were like, all right, this is going to be the first test of how good this team is. Well, now it's kind of looking like NC State wasn't really that test yet. So, I mean, I'm excited to see how they're going to be able to respond, especially with the big road game this week. Obviously, road games have never been Tennessee's forte. So I'm excited to see how this team handles it because they seem different than any other Tennessee team that's been there. They've got both the offense and the defense. They've got the new all the stuff they're doing with NIL and everything. Everything's changing, especially just in college football as a whole, but in Knoxville as well. And, I mean, it's nice to see that these things that we've been talking about for a while are finally coming to fruition of, this is an elite Tennessee football team that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time.
Ollie, everybody's been talking about Tennessee at Oklahoma, but Josh Heupel going back to Oklahoma, and they asked Omari Thomas the other day, "Is this something where it's like you got to win this thing for Heupel? Is it something special?" And he said Josh hasn't mentioned it once. It's not a big deal. It's the same thing week to week. But do players sense that? Do they know that? They see the storylines. They know everything that kind of surrounds a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, we follow storylines. I mean, we understand what all is going into each weekend whenever we play somebody. And I mean, I know from my own personal experiences with working with Coach Heupel that he does get those personal vendettas from time to time that I've noticed.
No.
But I mean, that's just he's a competitor, and that's just bred into him. And so, I mean, it's not something that we're going to go around the whole complex and we're going to talk and this and that, he's wanting to do this to beat the crap out of this guy or this and that. It's no, we're wanting to do what we do because we want to beat everybody and we want to be better than everybody. But I mean, some weeks there's some stuff that you don't talk about, but it just kind of adds a little bit more of that weight to it. And especially this week with him, I guess it'll be his first time back first time ever being at the stadium as a visitor. So, I mean, that's going to be a different change for him for sure. And I mean, knowing him, he's got that competitive spirit. He's going to go in there. He's going to send a message to that university. So.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's been questions asked to me all week long, do you think the players are extra motivated this week? And my response is, I don't think so. I don't think this team needs to be extra motivated. I just think that they love to go to work and they love their coach. And certainly Josh Heupel's not making it about himself this week. Ollie, you brought up something a moment ago that I wanted to hit on for sure because you got direct experience playing on the offensive line, even playing center in a road game for Tennessee. The pre-snap stuff, the communication, the crowd noise, how difficult is it overall? How can you kind of combat that to make it simple? And what do you expect for Nico? I mean, it's just an unknown, I guess. This will be his first try.
Yeah, I mean, it takes first getting into – because you can only prep so much for what you think the crowd noise is going to be. When you really kind of figure out what your processes are going to be, it's right before the game starts. What we used to do as an offense when we were on the road is we'd go to one of the end zones and we'd the 5 offensive linemen line up in the front, and then you'd put Joe in the back. And as soon as that opening kickoff goes off, he's clapping, and we report back either can we hear the clap or are we not hear the clap. And that decides if we decide to go with the silent count or not. And I mean, even then, with using a silent count, it just slows everything down. We want to go so fast. And there's so many moving parts within the offense. You got to kind of take some of that back. You take back some of the motions and stuff like that because it's hard to coordinate it all based off of the snap is now not in Nico's hands. It's all in the offensive line's hand and Cooper's hands more specifically. So, I mean, it takes more of that time to process everything. The communication can get a little hairy, especially at center because you're sitting here all right, as soon as I get the play call from the quarterback, which, I mean, hopefully you can hear it the first time he says it. Then you got to go and take that and you got to say your call to the rest of the line. Well, I mean, you got some guys that won't hear you, some guys that may have heard the wrong thing. And so in that whole time, you're trying to get it all set up. And then if you're not on silent, you're on the clap, you also, as a center, it's your responsibility. You got to snap down as soon as you get that play call to be ready to snap the ball. So, I mean, when it's on silent count, it helps a little bit with that, but it's kind of like the best of both worlds. If you go on the silent count, you got to take away and dumb down your offense a little bit. But if you don't go on the silent count, you start running into more communication issues, and then you have some mechanical issues like delay of snap or something like that. So there's definitely a lot that goes into it. And it, again, just what I stated at the beginning, it depends really just how loud that crowd really is. Because, we've gone to places before, like when we play at Alabama, it seems like Alabama would be one of the loudest stadiums, but it's not. It's actually not. I mean, you can operate and do whatever you need to in that stadium, but then when you go to Florida, everything's built up straight and it's right on top of you. And so, I mean, you can't hear. So it just depends on how well that crowd shows up this weekend, depending on how much it affects them. I think it will be fine for Nico. I think Nico's a good communicator. He's growing into that role. He wasn't the best when he first got to UT, but I've seen him take those steps to become a stronger communicator. And I mean, he seems to me like an easygoing guy. He's not going to rip someone for messing up because he couldn't hear anything. He's just going to say, hey, just let's lock in and dial in a little bit more. And that's going to help in the long run. Cause I mean, everybody's trying to do the job correctly. And I mean, it doesn't help if it's going to cause frustration with communication errors. So it's good to have someone that's the leader of that, to be that calm voice and not let the frustration break everybody apart. Cause that's what it can do so easily.
You kind of led me into my next question. Nico, it seems like every time the cameras find him on the sideline, he's got that same look on his face. Every time we talk to him, he's kind of got that same even keel, the sports cliche, never too high, never too low. Even the pick he threw against North Carolina State, he bounced back and kind of responded to that, and it never really looked like he had any change in his game. Have you seen that from him, and being around him, how even keel he is, and how much can that help you when you're going on the road to not be too high, to not be too low, to not just kind of be the same consistent guy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I can, from my own personal experiences of being around Nico, he's even mood, doesn't ever really he's not an emotional driven person, I guess, per se. Like, he lets that kind of be what it is and understands that he's got to represent a bunch of people everywhere that he goes. So, the more that you play with emotions, when I was always playing, they told you don't play with emotions because it can get out of hand. And you got to be a really strong person to be able to control your emotions. And I can see that in Nico. He doesn't let it go wild. And I mean, that's perfect for what you need, especially as the leader of an offense. A couple of times we get into bad situations last year and Joe's wanting to call everybody up, rah, rah, this and that. And they're like, that's nice every now and then, but that's not needed every game. And it's not going to work every game. Nico seems to begin to understand, like, my role is to just be the best me that I can be for the team right now. And when or if they really need someone to talk to them, I will be that person. He's not shying away from that leadership, but he's saying my most important role is just being the quarterback for this team right now.
Ollie, I don't expect you to be an expert on the Oklahoma Sooners, but, we watched a little bit at the stadium before Tennessee's game on Saturday. I'm sure you were watching that 3:30 game with Tulane and Oklahoma. Know about Brent Venables. We know he's a defensive-minded coach. What limited action you've seen of Oklahoma defensively, what do they try to do? Anything stand out to you in terms of personnel? What's the challenges up front for Tennessee's O-line and specifically that run game?
I mean, I would definitely say first and foremost is going to be the most physical defense they've gone against this year. They put out physical people on there, and they're athletes, and they want to hit hard. The one thing I will say, it doesn't seem like the speed's quite matching to what the speed we have, especially at the wide receiver position compared to their corners. I think a lot of what he's going to try to do is either he's got to decide, is he going to stop the run or is he going to stop the pass? Because you can't stop both. You can manage both, but I mean, one's going to get out of hand. So I foresee probably starting off the game, you're going to see a lot of loaded boxes. You're going to see him trying to force us to throw the ball. Because, I mean, the fact is, if you put us in positions to throw the ball, then, I mean, that's easier to get your pressures, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on Nico to perform, especially at this still young age. I mean, we all see him. He's developed and he's talented, but he still hasn't really been put in that pressure cooker yet and seeing if he can perform or not. And, I mean, me personally, I think he can, but that's going to be the most important thing is how comfortable can this offensive line keep them, because they do have a very physical defensive line, and they got a defensive line that's familiar with us. DJ Terry, that plays D-line at Oklahoma, was here with us for like 2 or 3 years, something like that. So, I mean, he understands what our mindset is coming into this game. And I'm sure he's probably sharing that with other people on the team, as he should. And so I think you're going to see a really true test of just how good our offense can be, because it's going to be a better defense, and it's going to set them up to take the next step to go against better defenses that they'll see throughout the season.
Ollie, I thought Tennessee's defensive line was going to be good entering the season. I thought it was going to be a strength. I didn't think they would be this consistently elite that they have been through 3 games. NC State specifically, the way they set the tone in that game. Are you at all surprised? You saw it up close facing a lot of these guys so much that they're this good, that they're this deep, they roll in so many different bodies, and how much of an X factor are they in a road game like this?
First of all, how fortunate are you now that you don't have to see that every single day in practice? Because I am sure they made it easier for the most part in the games for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I tell you every day I'm so thankful that I don't have to wake up and go one-on-one with Elijah Simmons every morning. Yeah, that was always a great way to start the day, but I'm glad I'm past that now. But no, I mean, to your point, this defensive line has been so impressive to start the season. And I mean, I knew it was coming. They've had the same guys that are on this D line. It feels like they've been here forever, and they've really invested into the program, and the program's invested into them. Coach G's done a great job of developing these guys and getting them ready and understanding. He's a strong veteran coach and understands. He's been around. He knows what's going to work, and he's given the tools to them, and they've not only taken that, but they've also applied it into what they do. And, I mean, you look across that D-line, I mean, this guy's a dude. The guy behind him is a dude. The guy next to him is a dude. I mean, you can go down the list, and, I mean, everybody can go in and give you quality reps. And just throughout a season, that's going to be so huge for you, because people are going to get hurt. You're going to have people not be able to do as much as they did at the beginning of the season towards the end of the season. So it's nice to have that fresh rotation. You're going to be able to, one, keep guys a lot more healthier through the year. You're going to keep more people invested, because the more you play people, the more they're actually really invested into the game and what's going on throughout the season. And then lastly, you're going to help out this team a lot. I mean, everybody says that defense wins championships, but it makes it a lot easier when you're pairing your defense with an elite offense that can score points. And, you know, just looking at the matchup this week, Oklahoma's O-line, as a lot of us know, has not been playing that good. They've got people hurt. They had to replace everybody from the year before. So, I mean, this is going to be, to me, what I feel like is going to be a big key in that game is just, are they going to be able to give Jackson Arnold any time to do anything? I mean, I think he's going to be able to make some plays on his feet. You know, he's good at getting out of the pocket. But I think this D-line and the front seven as a whole is going to put way too much pressure on him, and he's not going to be able to get comfortable into a game that's at his own stadium.
We know the old football adage, you know, run game's the quarterback's best friend and all that. We've heard Josh Heupel say that everything's built off the run. If you know football at all, that's kind of football, you know, 101, that, you know, everything kind of builds off that run. But specifically for you in this offense, in this Heupel offense, kind of explain to us how, you know, if you establish that run earlier in the game, how much easier things are for you. Now, you quarterback, and I mean, everybody's still got to go out there and make plays, don't get me wrong, but how much easier is it for you guys as a unit offensively that, okay, if you go out there and establish that run game in the first quarter or the first half, offensively the rest of the day, how much easier is it for your job to get done and go win that football game?
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely, establishing the run is the biggest key to really winning any game and being successful offensively. And I mean,
I think it's a key to this game for sure. So important.
Yeah, I mean, if you establish the run, then you've got that defense strictly thinking, I've got to stop this run game. I'm not going to be able to keep up with it. Now you're going to see holes open up in the pass game. Well, then they're going to try to revert back and cover the pass. Now you hit them with RPOs. There's so many different variations of formations that you can do based just off running and throwing the ball and mixing them together that you're going to be able to get them off guard by doing so. And that, again, it all starts with the run game. If you can't run the ball, then no one's going to fall for your play action because they know you're not going to hand it off. You're throwing it. But, I mean, the more that you can get them to want to bite into it and take that bait is going to be huge.
How big is this season? Or I guess through the first 3 games, Dylan Samson, it feels like he's still kind of flying under the radar nationally. Like, people in Knoxville know who he is, know how good he is. I don't think the college football world in general knows how good he can be, how elite he can be. Because Nico gets all the attention, the fast-paced offense, all that stuff. But they run the football, and Dylan Samson is a huge part of that because of what he can do, check down stuff, catching the ball out of the backfield, how versatile he is, his balance, his strength, explosiveness. Like, it feels like it's still going to be a big coming out party as the weeks go on for this guy.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I've been saying it for years. D. Samp is one of one. I mean, he is a heck of a dude. You know, super nice guy, great leader, and I mean, he's a great football player. He can do everything. He reminds me a lot of another guy that wore number 6 for Tennessee a couple years ago. I mean, he's got that same kind of flashes of big play potential. He can run routes. He's successful, consistent catcher. I mean, he's going to receive or get reception of the ball if it's thrown to him. It's not, you know, you see a lot of backs. It's like you can either run the ball or he's a receiving back. Well, he's that good mix of both that's able to you can do so many different things with him. And I mean, he's also, for what his size is, I mean, he's still a very powerful back. He runs hard. You know, a lot of people wonder with a guy that like him, more shifty, agile kind of guy, no, he can still lay a pop. And I mean, when you need a goal line stop, or not a goal line stop, goal line score or something like that, he's able to still bring that weight to it that some guys that are choose that aesthetic of, I'm going to be the shifty, agile guy. Well, they don't want to run over anybody. Well, D. Samp's not afraid to have a little contact. I mean, I think he's hitting somewhere around 1-something yards after contact so far, or something like that. So, I mean, and I think it's only going to continue to get better. You know, it's hard because there's so much less value that's been put on the running back position. I think it comes from the league. So not a lot of people are really paying attention to the running backs as much unless they're making big plays. And he's going to continue to make big plays, and he's going to put his name on the radar for people that should already have him on and haven't, I guess, been introduced to what all he can really do.
Last one for me, Ollie. Look at that offensive line. First, I want to get your thoughts on how they played as a unit so far. Recognize the opponents and everything, but I mean they've been dominant for the most part. And then secondly, I've said this so many times, it's so valuable to have guys like you, Dane Davis, Jackson Lamb. Well, you and Dane specifically because of the versatility, right? Dane's already came in and played, you know, both tackles and all that. But you know, rotating offensive linemen, typically you don't mess with your 5. Now, sometimes you have to if somebody's hurt. But a little bit last year, and to begin this year, I mean, Dane's been in there. He's played just as many snaps as any of the other offensive linemen. Yeah. Does that mess with the with the chemistry you guys have? Is it just kind of plug and play when they rotate guys in there like that?
I guess it just depends. You know, it depends on how strong of a connection that 5 is. You know, obviously, look back at some pass, like you stick with your 5, and that 5 is going to roll out there. Unless someone gets hurt, we're going to put another guy in to fill it. But I think it's a very important asset to have if you've got a whole room of guys that trust each other and that communicate and talk with each other. Then, I mean, it's easy to rotate, plug and play. You're going to keep guys fresher, not be as tired, winded, and be able to still bring a good force. And, I mean, when you got a group like that, which we have at UT, I mean, everybody talks to everybody in that offensive line room, and they're all would consider each other brothers and best friends. So, I mean, they can go in and play with one another. You know, sometimes you get in these different position room environments, and there's this group over here, then there's this group over here, and they don't really talk to each other, and they can't really play with each other. But, I mean, that's the completely different view of what the offensive line room and what Glenn Ellerby has installed in that offensive line room. It's a family atmosphere. Everybody's going to get along with everybody. And I mean, that's a big thing when we go out and recruit some guys. It's like, do these guys fit with what we want and fit in our room? And if yes, then they're going to work out good. And I mean, this offensive line, obviously the talent we've played hasn't been up there, but I mean, they've been playing really well. And it's exciting to see like guys like Cooper Mays go out there and continue to solidify what could be a really good career for him going forward. You got guys like Andre Carrick coming back. He was hurt for majority of last year, coming in, playing with aggression and violence and doing some big things. Seeing John being able to slide over to the other side and still bring that same impact that he did at left. Seeing Lance come in. I mean, it's exciting stuff seeing these guys come in and play hard and be successful. And now it's just time to see, are they going to be able to carry it through as the opponents get harder, as the pass rushes get a little more difficult, the rushes, the blitzes. So, I mean, I think as long as this group stays together and stays healthy, they've got a chance to be one of the best offensive line groups that we've had in a long time. And I wouldn't be surprised if they pull down a little Joe Moore this year. So,
Man, they've been so close.
Oh, I know.
Really since Heupel and Ellerby been here. I mean, you guys have been so close so many times, like what, 3 semifinalists, and that'd be something really cool to see. All right, Grant and I are going to give our predictions here in a couple minutes, but out the door for you. How do you think Saturday's going to go, man?
I don't know, I've been playing back and forth with it. I've heard a lot of different projections. I'm going 42-17. I think this defense is going to stop them from being able to really kind of take off and score. And just the high volume of points we've been scoring lately, I don't see how it's going to be. Obviously, it's not going to be 70. But, I mean, I see maybe you stutter out the door a little bit, but then you pick it back up. And, I mean, the second half, you can just run off with it. That's what I think is hopefully going to happen. So.
All right, you heard it here first. Tennessee wins in a blowout, according to Ollie Lane. I think everybody here listening and watching will take that in a heartbeat. Ollie, great job again, man. Love having you on. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Man, Ollie Lane, he was really, really good, Grant. He said a lot of good things that I thought were noteworthy about dealing with crowd noise, silent counts compared to the clap, how really right around kickoff they go over there and they kind of huddle up as an offense with the quarterback and decide kind of, what they're going to do. And I mean, I didn't, want to pour it on there, really just pour it on in general. But he even said at the top, like, it's not really been Tennessee's forte on the road here lately. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of been, not by me, but I think it's kind of been overlooked this week, is it's never easy on the road. Look at college football, and Tennessee has some pre-snap issues big time on the road. You hope that's not the case in Oklahoma, and I thought that was some pretty good insight from Ollie on how they try to combat that.
You can also go on the road sometimes, like LSU 2022, and absolutely blitz the home team if you just get off to a fast start. So I think it has kind of worked both ways. And you don't have to go to Gainesville in September this year. I mean, I think that's a big deal, too. It's got a different feel to it because Tennessee's only been to Oklahoma once. It was a Big 12 game, Big 12 SEC game back in whatever that was, 2014. So it's been a while. It's just got a different feel to it. There's so much around it. One thing that's interesting to me is kind of, do players kind of build it up to be too much, and kind of how do you have to walk that line of it's just another game, it's the SEC, all that stuff, versus this is a really big game, and there's a lot to it. There's a lot on the outside noise and game day and all that stuff leading into it. How do you kind of have to control those emotions? And he was good too on Josh Heupel too, and kind of how he handles it, and the day-to-day, the week-to-week, kind of how consistent he is, and the kind of players coach that he is as well.
Yeah, so we'll see how Tennessee kind of handles that. We'll see how Josh Heupel handles that moment. It's going to be a big one, man. Grant, give me some keys. What are your keys to the football game? You've mentioned a couple already, controlling the line of scrimmage, running the football. What are some other things that Tennessee must do in order to win this football game?
I mean, Nico's got to look the part. I mean, he's Nico, and there's so much expectation and hype around him and all that stuff. In these kind of games, he's got to look the part, and he's got to do his part. I'm not saying he can't make mistakes. I think he can, and he can rebound from those, and he's got enough guys around him. But when the time comes to make plays, he's going to have to make plays. I think Tennessee's run game, they can lean on that, and they can lean on tight ends, and they can kind of do a lot of different stuff in a lot of different ways. But there's going to come times where Nico has to make that throw that he made against Chattanooga, or that throw that he made over the middle against Kent State, where he's putting in a tight window, or the bouncing back from the interception he threw against North Carolina State and taking off and running when he can extend a drive on 3rd and 6 and getting 7 and finding a way to get those tough yards. So I think Nico's going to have to be Nico, and I think this Tennessee defense is going to have to be this Tennessee defense that we've seen through the first 3 games, that they control the line of scrimmage up front. The linebackers are there, and you know what you're going to get out of them. And they kind of, that front 7 kind of protects that secondary and doesn't put the entire game on the back end of this defense. I think they're disruptive up front, and they have to continue to be that and be consistent, aggressive, physical, all that stuff, kind of set the tone up front defensively, and hope your quarterback can be your quarterback and the guy that everybody thinks he is.
Yeah, I think Nico's got to, he doesn't have to go out there and be Superman, but he, and I don't think that he will, but, fault under pressure or anything like that, but he's got to go out there and show like, hey, I'm Nico, right? And based on what you said, just be you, do what you do, and create some plays with your legs. I think Tennessee will be choosy. Now I think you'll scramble some, but I think Tennessee will pick and choose on when to run Nico. They were putting some stuff on tape earlier in the year, but I go back to, I guess it was NC State when they went empty set and he just ran it for a touchdown actually.
Right.
Beautiful play call. And so I think he's got to do some of that. I think, for Tennessee to win this game, like, I don't think Tennessee needs it, or I don't think Nico needs to be Superman to win the game, but I do think Tennessee needs to have a really good day running the football. Now, I'm not saying run for 456 yards like he did against Kent State. But, we were kind of talking about in the Monday night chat, like, somebody said, if they get 150 yards, I think Tennessee wins by double-digit score. And I'm like, well, 150 is a good day. It's not a great day. It's certainly not a bad day, but it's not like, Tennessee for a great day is much more than 150. And I think Tennessee can certainly rush for more than 150. So I think Tennessee's got to run the football to win this game. Nico's got to be himself. Defensively, man, I'm just putting it all on that defensive line. I really am. The secondary will get tested. There has been one pass play of over 20 yards in 3 games, okay, that's been completed against Tennessee's defense. So that's 20 yards down the field. That is incredible. That won't be the case this week, okay? And so I think Tennessee's defensive line is going to make it difficult, beat up on that offensive line, make things difficult for Jackson Arnold. So defensive line, just continue to do what you're doing, essentially. So my keys of the game is Tennessee, just do what you've been doing, you'll be all right. How's that, right? How's that? Running the football, playing good defensive line, and, of course, having a good quarterback. Bold predictions. Before we get to score predictions, give me bold predictions, Grant Ramey. What you got?
Dylan Samson, as king of the president of the Dylan Samson fan club. I consider myself a king too, but that's, I guess, a different story. I'm going to go 171 total yards. I don't know what the split is, but 171 total and 3 touchdowns, because that dude has a nose for the end zone. I think he scored roughly 75 times this season through 3 games. And I'm going to go. Yeah. I'm going to go James. 975, close enough. I'm going to go James Pierce. 2 quarterback hurries, and 1.5 sacks.
So I was going to go James Pierce as well. Like, eventually he's going to get his. It's a big game. And,
what better time?
Yeah, and I said this on a show at some point this week. Like, when he gets sacks, he gets them in bunches. So I think it's not only going to be 1 time, it's going to be at least 2 times. So give me James Pierce, 2.5 sacks, and that would be, obviously on a big stage, everybody watching, probably big moments, 3rd downs, that'd be huge. So give me James Pierce, 2.5 sacks. Give me Squirrel White's going to pop one returning a punt. Give me, I love Tennessee's punt. Like, everybody wants to see Boo, and I get it. I want to see Boo too. I think Boo's going to be great returning the football. Squirrel ain't bad, man. And I wasn't crazy about Squirrel returning punts earlier in the year, but just seeing how many, like, it's one thing to, like, talk about how many options Tennessee has at receiver. It's another thing to see it. And I don't want Squirrel White to miss any time. Trust me. I think he's one of Tennessee's best players. But Tennessee's got a lot of weapons at wide receiver, so I don't hate the fact that he's returning punch right now. And he's got some wiggle, man. He's got some vision. I think Squirrel White's going to pop one. If it's not for a touchdown, it's putting Tennessee up at, like, the 10-yard line in the red zone. So big special teams return. James Pierce gets 2.5 sacks. And give me Nico 4 total touchdowns. I don't know what the breakdown is there, but Nico 4 total touchdowns. So maybe biting into a little bit of the Dylan Samson production, like he's done to so many others throughout his career.
The biggest compliment to Squirrel White as a punt returner is you look down there and you just think that's D. Williams, because he puts on that number 3 jersey and he just kind of runs into space. Like, he's got open space around him, and he's averaging whatever it is, 20 yards per punt return. Like, that's the biggest compliment. And for Tennessee to not miss a beat there, if that's what Squirrel continues to be returning the punt, that's huge, because D. Williams had a lot of huge returns and flipped a lot of fields. And if you can flip a field on the road in this kind of environment, in this kind of game, that could be a huge momentum changer.
Do you know how good or how many, like, Tennessee players are leading the SEC in stats right now?
Probably a bunch, because Tennessee scored roughly 3 billion points through 3 games, along with those 75 Dylan Samson touchdowns.
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull it up right now, but the SEC website's being really, really silly. Okay, here we go. I got it.
You got to be kidding! The SEC site not working? How about last March when they decided to redevelop the site in the middle of March Madness? That was a fun time.
Also, if you're watching us right now, Grant, I know you can see, like, can I please get rid of this stupid, like, can this banner go somewhere?
Nope,
like,
it cannot. It just means more.
Just means more. Get out of here. Rushing wise.
Whoa, we got 2013 here. I mean 2023, not 2013.
Well, this is really okay.
Unless
Good
Cody
catch.
Schrader's still in the league and already played 13 games.
I was going to say Cody Schrader. I thought he was done for. Get out of here.
And there's nothing. Thanks
Okay,
a lot,
well,
SEC. It just means more.
we got the spinning wheel of death here. I'm really trying to share a screen and be technical. Dylan Samson, you'll see it right
here we go.
Dylan Samson is second in the league in rushing, and he's played like 7 quarters. Okay. He's barely trailing Jackson from Arkansas there. He is, let's see here. He is second to Jackson in all-purpose yards. Again, remember, Dylan Sampson's played like 7 quarters. But scoring-wise, goodness gracious, Dylan Samson is out by a mile. Okay, you got Max Gilbert, who has 7 field goals. He leads the SEC in field goals, which is a great surprise for a guy that we do nothing about. Dylan Samson leads the conference in overall touchdowns. Jackson from Arkansas has 6. You have
Brady Cook.
and then you got like 4 from Brady Cook and Taylon Green. So Dylan Samson is leading the SEC in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. He's second in rushing, second in all-purpose. You got Nico, who's third in passing right now. You've got Squirrel White, actually Boo Carter technically he only has 2 though. Technically leads the SEC in punt return average at 27, but Squirrel White's second with 20 yards of return, so you're right on that. And then I mentioned Max Gilbert. How about that? Okay, Blake Craig from Missouri actually overtook him last week. He's 8 of 10, but Max Gilbert's 7 of 8. I mean, how about that? I mean, Tennessee amongst the leaders here, and again, if Dylan Samson can just play a whole football game, there's no telling how good he could be in terms of stats.
I mean, you can only play the teams that are in front of you. And Tennessee's played 2 pretty bad teams and maybe another team in NC State that might be hot garbage. But now you get a chance to go to Oklahoma. You go to Arkansas. You've got Florida and Alabama coming in October, Kentucky. You go to Georgia in November. Like, they're going to get a chance to prove it. Like, if this team is what we've seen through 3 weeks, they're a really, really good football team. Now it's kind of the, rubber meets the road. It's time to show it in the SEC. And maybe Oklahoma's not that great. If you go there and beat them by 20 and people are going to say, well, how good's Oklahoma? That's fine. Just go there, handle your business, move on to the next one. Get a bye week, go to Arkansas, do the same thing. Like, survive and advance almost with this 12-team field. Just keep proving yourself week in and week out regardless of the competition.
Yep, no doubt. Favorite tradition of the week, Grants. Put no thought into it because the time we record this is before we put out our picks on Friday. And I should really probably start thinking about this before we get to it every week.
Nah.
But
wing it, my man. Wing it.
Give me a score prediction. You're going first.
All right. If you're listening to this, you've probably read my game score prediction on Volquest on the site, and people know that I picked Tennessee to go 9-3. People know that I picked them to lose at Oklahoma, at home against Alabama, and at Georgia. Those were
and you're not backing
losses.
down, are you? You're going to say the
course.
course.
I am backing down. Listen to me. Let me finish. Remember when Michael Scott fired Dwight Schrute? And then he had to go to Staples to rehire Dwight Schrute. And he said, it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong. And I am that big man. I am that big man right now. I am that big man. I think I was wrong. What I've seen from Tennessee through 3 games, I did not expect to see at the level and consistently how dominant they've been. What I've seen from Oklahoma through 3 games, I did not expect to see from Oklahoma through 3 games, how they struggled with a pretty bad Houston team, how they struggled to put away Tulane a week ago. Based on what I've seen through 3 weeks, I think Tennessee wins this game, and I think they win it going away, 37-20. I think 20 is a pretty big insult for this Tennessee defense because they haven't given up a touchdown since the Clinton administration, and they've been playing really, really well. So I don't know how that 20 points happens or what it looks like, but I think it's a game Tennessee has to win or should win, and they can, again, continue to make statements based on it because it's the biggest game in college football this week. It's the 7:30 primetime ABC. It's all the storylines, all the drama going into it, game days in town, all that stuff. I didn't realize game day hadn't been there since 2012 or whatever. The Sooner Scoop guy said on the Monday podcast. It's impressive to me that it's been that long, but I think Tennessee can win this game and make a huge statement doing so. And if they do, then I was wrong. And here I am. Remember, I am that big man, Michael Scott. I was wrong. I might be wrong. I don't know. We'll see. Check back late Saturday night.
So you have 37-20?
37-20.
Look at you, man. At the time of this recording, oh no, it's still under. At the time of this recording, the total is at 57.5. It's gone down 2 points. Tennessee's actually gone down a point. It was 7.5 earlier in this week. Now it's 6.5 over at FanDuel Sportsbook. So you're still right at the under at 57.
Well, and in my defense, Vegas had Tennessee as a 5.5 point underdog for this game back in May. So Vegas was wrong too. I'm not
Vegas
alone.
was wrong. I mean, Ollie scored, but what did he have? Like 42-17? Like,
yeah,
at first I
Ollie
was
was out there.
I was like, that's kind of out there, but I'm not too far off now that I kind of think about it. I reserve the right to change this in my Volquest picks, when I actually do them, but I probably won't. I think Tennessee runs away from it maybe towards the end as well. I think Tennessee allows a touchdown or two because that's what defenses do, okay? I do think there'll be some adversity, but we'll see Rob's matchup piece. It was up there a couple days ago on the site. I'm not sure I like Oklahoma in any individual matchup. I just don't, man. Coming into the year, I would have said hands down the passing attack against Tennessee's secondary, but I'm not ready to say that right now. Now, again, we're going to see they're going to get challenged for sure, so we'll see a little bit more about that secondary for Tennessee. Having said all that, I mean, I like Tennessee to win this by a couple of scores. Give me Tennessee 35-17, and I too have the under. We're boring this week with the unders, man.
No, nobody cares about the total if Tennessee's going to Oklahoma and winning by 2 touchdowns and winning comfortably. I can assure you of that. I mean, if Tennessee goes and does what they're capable of, Tennessee fans will be just fine if there's, 37 total points scored, whatever it is.
37-20, 35-17. We both had Tennessee winning convincingly on the road, and boy, that would put the Vols in great shape, heading into the first bye week of the season. Now, there's still a lot of work to do. Florida's never easy. It's the dumpster fire right now. We have an opportunity to see how fast it'll burn if it loses this weekend, but I don't think it's going to lose this weekend. Florida's on the schedule, Alabama, Kentucky, Georgia. I mean, there's other games to play. You win this game, you are sitting in that driver's seat for the college football playoffs, and we think Tennessee's going to get it done. We got tons and tons of preview coverage still leading up to kickoff. We'll have coverage during the game, and we'll have so much coverage after the game, reacting and dissecting what Tennessee and Oklahoma did in this ball game. Do want to give a shout out again as we say goodbye to our proud sponsors. They're more than sponsors, they're our friends. That is Premier Garage of Knoxville, East Tennessee's #1 provider of custom garage flooring, cabinetry, and storage solutions. You can be the best Tennessee fan this football season by ordering the Smokey Grey Hybrid Polymer Floor. The Smokey Grey Hybrid Polymer Floor today at Premier Garage Knoxville.com/Vols. That is PremierGarageKnoxville.com/Vols. Orders yours today at PremierGarageKnoxville.com/Vols. For Grant Ramey, I'm Eric Cain. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on GameQuest. It is a Volquest.com game day podcast.